So I'm always fascinated with what goes into creating a pro mountain bike rider. So what goes into their training, what goes into their all-out ability on a bike that creates this like raw speed when it comes to racing, professional races like the Enduro World Series. And I got such a great response in one of the last videos I did with this. I compared my race run against Jesse Melamed's race run, who is pretty much one of the top 3 riders in the sport, to try to break down and see where Jesse was making all his time, where I was losing time.
Oh, shit.
And where I could actually make improvements for like future riding and future racing. I've actually asked Lewis Buchanan, local legend here in Olethen, if he can give me access to some of his Enduro World Series footage from when the EWS came here last year, and we're going to compare another stage, me versus Lewis, to see where he is creating these margins in this race run, so you can see for yourself, and hopefully this will help improve your own riding too. So the stage I've chosen to compare was stage 2 of the last EWS here in Olethen. It had a variety of conditions on the track. It was quite physically demanding stage, and because of the mud, it literally made it one of the hardest tracks I've ever raced. So on stage 2, Lewis finished in 13th place overall, and he had a time of 4:31. I finished stage 2 in 82nd place with a time of 5:07. And that's just over a 30-second gap between the two riders over a 4 or 5 minute track, which is quite considerable. Like, it's not too much time in the grand scale of things, but when you actually break things down and think about 30 seconds of 2 riders moving down a track, it's quite a lot. That's why these screen share videos of side-by-side comparisons are really, really cool, because you can actually see where riders are pulling away, where riders are losing speed, and you can really dial in and get real analytical on how to improve your own riding and see where the top pro riders are actually gaining and getting all their speed from. We're now at the top of stage 2, and I'm going to shut up, I'm going to press play, and we're going to jump straight into this. Okay, we're off. The first thing I can visibly see out the start is that Lewis has a very, very strong start. Like, he's got some ridiculously raw acceleration from a standing start, and he's already pulled maybe a second or so within the first 15 seconds. This first bit of track was very tricky. It was all about carrying speed. As you can see, he's already about a turn ahead. I can still keep him in sight, but gradually he's pulling away. The gap's probably now about 5 seconds. Still keep him in sight, but he's pulling. And Lewis is now into the flat, shitty section of this stage, where it started to go uphill, which is horrendous, as you're about to see. So Lewis is on the climb now. I've just entered the climb. I've still got him in sight. Wow, this is like peanut butter. Drop into the next trail, Lewis is. No, 8. 1:13, so he's about 5 seconds away again. So he's not pulled too much on me there from the start, but definitely carried more speed up that really steep hill into the next section of track. And you can visibly see on both screens that he's definitely carrying more speed than me. And both these videos are filmed on the same GoPro with the same settings, so they shouldn't be any difference in terms of like frame rate or anything, so but they're both exactly the same. So we're coming to the end of the end of zone 1 now, sorry, onto the fire road. Man, makes me want to be sick watching this. So Lewis is going to the fire road, we're going to do a lap time. Now. Here we go. Alex is going to the fire road. Now, so zone 1 down to the first fire road on this stage, we're not finished yet. Lewis came down 2:03, I came down 2:15, so he's pulled 11 seconds on me in that first 2 minutes of track, which was extremely physical. And then you had to drop back into the next section of trail to enter what was just like an absolute war zone, or an absolute like mess of thick mud, roots, and even flatter trail. So I'm going to reset the times again. So I'm going to make sure me and Lewis are lined up. and we're gonna click start again. And we're gonna reset this again, and we're gonna see how much time Lewis now pulls on me in this middle section of track and see if there's any difference there. So reset the clock, 3, 2, 1. And we're in. And bearing in mind, you're dropping into this fairly fatigued, the heart is racing, and you're just trying to stay focused and ride the trail. Really flat section of track now. Again, you can just see Lewis carrying more speed. Really slippy as well. You probably can't tell on camera, but it was so slippy. Crowds are amazing. You can hear both our breaths just like gasping for air. Lewis is now into the little section where it has a little bit of a climb, which was disgusting. I'm just coming into that now, and oh my god, I am so close to stopping. Lewis is going to stop. And here we go. Stop for Alex. That section was a little bit shorter than the first zone that we timed. Lewis came down in a time of 1 minute and 5 seconds, and I was 10 seconds back with a time of 1:16. So 10 seconds in the first zone, 10 seconds in the second zone. We'll line the cameras up again, and we'll drop into the third and final zone of this stage. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Wow, I can tell you now from experience and like memory, this, I was feeling it now. Like I wasn't riding how I normally would have ridden. I was hanging off the handlebars, missing all of my lines and just trying to get down the track. And Lewis is literally just motoring. It's impressive to watch. Really impressive. And the crowds again, shout out to if you came to EWS in Alifa and you were cheering, because you guys made this race what it was. I'm actually like confused as to where we are. Everything looks the same in the woods. So Lewis isn't too far ahead. He's into that section now. I made a big mistake here. To show how tired I was. Man, look at the crowds on Lewis's screen. It's giving me goosebumps watching. Fucking sick. Lewis is over the line. I actually caught a rider up here. And Alex is over the line. Whew. It's quite tiring watching that. So if we look at like some of the key points of this race, and just to see where Lewis was pulling a lot of his time. First, he had some insane acceleration at the start. Yeah, it didn't account for the whole 30 seconds of time, but it just goes to show how setting off on a stage on a high with your strong foot forward can probably help you going into a trail or into a race, say. I always feel a little bit reserved going into a race. I'm always a little bit like, okay, the race isn't won or lost at the start, and it's not because I can't pedal ridiculously hard at the start. Literally, I choose to almost be a little bit reserved out of the start gate. I don't know why. Maybe it's a mental thing. I've had too many instances where I've gone out the start of a race, got in the wrong mindset and had a crash or had a bad race run because I'd set off on the wrong foot. For me, I like to set off a little bit more reserved. Obviously, Lewis is just like a bat out of hell. Straight out the start, 1,000,000 watts down, and he's just motoring down the first bit of track, which is why he pulled so much time on me in that first 10 seconds of track, which is quite interesting to see. And then as you noticed, as we went down the trail, it wasn't the steepest of trails. Like, it only had a 230 meter drop of elevation over the whole stage, which is very flat for some of the trails that are around here. So you really have to rely on carrying speed everywhere, which means pumping the bike as much as you can, trying to keep those wheels moving, and just trying to stay off the brakes in corners and carry speed through them as much as you can. And that first zone to the first fire road was very flat. It was very thick mud, and if you stopped pedaling, your bike stopped, like, period. You had to keep moving, and especially when you came to that uphill climb, which, as you saw on my screen, I literally came to nearly a dead stop. Lewis wasn't too far in front, but he carried a little bit more momentum into that next bit of brand new trail, which was an absolute mess by the time hundreds of riders had already been down it the day before, and it just made it absolute carnage. On a track like this as well, being strong on the bike, like Arnold Schwarzenegger strong, is probably quite a good thing to have. Being able to muscle a bike around and being able to stay in that strong body position when you're fatigued is definitely key, because you saw at the bottom towards that trail, I was definitely in what looked like a more fatigued state than Lewis. And by no means, I would not class myself as unfit, but it just goes to show, after you're gassing after 3-4 minutes, the ability to stay up strong on your bike in that solid position can have a big difference in terms of how fast you ride a trail. Because I was literally on autopilot at the bottom of that track. I was just get this stage out of the way, survive this stage, and then open up on some of the other stages. It was a very physically demanding stage, and when you're trying to perform and ride your bike at those high heart rate levels and in such a fatigued state, being able to perform under pressure and at such a high intensity, being able to stay cool or like stay calm and composed, that is a big key I've noticed when I've been watching Enduro World Series riders at these races. Like, they aren't erratic on the bike. Well, maybe some are erratic, but a lot of people at the top of the sport, they're able to keep their mindset in check. They're able to get into that zone of focus that just helps them dominate and stay so consistent. That consistency over the day is what creates those results, in my eyes anyway. I hope that video was interesting to you guys. I'm quite enjoying doing things like this and breaking down how I see top athletes, top Enduro World Series athletes, being able to just advance that little bit more and bust through that ceiling where most people like get stuck. The top 1% in the sport have the ability to bust through to like new levels of everything, and obviously it's their job. They train for it, that's all they do, whereas most people have other things going on, so they can't dedicate like full focus to things. So it's really interesting to see like how these guys think about things and how that actually translates to a race run, so you can actually take away things from that and apply it to your own riding. So yeah, drop me a comment below. I mean, if you enjoyed this, smash thumbs up button. Help us show it to more people who want to see this stuff. Go check out some of the other videos we've got on the channel if you've not seen them, especially that Jesse Melamed video, which I'll link on the screen now so you can go and watch that comparison video. I'm curious to know what your takeaway from this is, whether it actually helped you, whether you could see the differences that I could see, whether you picked up something completely different that I missed. Get them in the comments, and I'd be keen to hear what you think, and take care. I'll see you in the next video.